Across the United States, something almost unthinkable is unfolding right in front of us. Drive-through lanes that once wrapped around buildings now sit silent. Neon signs flicker or go dark, and the familiar scent of fried comfort food is slowly disappearing from city streets. From New York all the way to Nevada, restaurants that used to be packed are shutting their doors at a rate America hasn't witnessed in decades. Menu prices have skyrocketed, paychecks haven't kept up, and families who once relied on fast food as an affordable fallback are being priced out entirely. Every closed sign tells the same story. A long-standing promise that quick, cheap meals would always be within reach has been quietly broken. And now, in 2025, that belief is finally collapsing. This is a story about icons losing their grip, about massive chains brought to their knees. It's the unraveling of America's fast food empire. Number 10. TGI Fridays. The downfall of one of America's most recognizable dining brands is no longer speculation. It's happening right now in plain sight. TGI Fridays, once synonymous with relaxed comfort, after-work drinks, and casual get-togethers, is entering the bleakest period in its history in decades. In early 2025, the company acknowledged the shutdown of more than 180 locations across the United States, eliminating close to 7,000 jobs in just 4 months. These weren't forgotten spots tucked away in struggling suburbs. Many sat along prime retail strips that used to buzz with families at dinner time and office workers unwinding after long days. Now, those same parking lots are eerily quiet, with flickering neon signs serving as fading reminders of a different era in America. The financial damage is just as severe. Sales have dropped nearly 22% compared to 2019, while average revenue per restaurant has slipped below $1.4 million, an unprecedented low for the brand. Food costs have jumped almost 40% since 2020, and soaring labor expenses have shredded already razor-thin margins. A burger that once sold for $9.99 now costs $15.49. That jump isn't just inflation, it's a sign of a company struggling to survive. Customers, already overwhelmed by rising rent, car payments, and medical expenses, simply stopped showing up. Data from U.S. Restaurant Analytics shows traffic in casual dining is down 11.6% year-over-year, and Fridays has absorbed much of that impact. Behind closed doors, franchise owners are pulling out. More than 30 operators have filed for debt restructuring or temporarily shut down locations, pointing to impossible lease terms and dwindling foot traffic. Even the chain's legendary happy hour has become a burden instead of a draw, as younger diners opt for cheaper fast casual options or delivery apps. The brand that helped define American casual dining in the 1970s is now being suffocated by the very market it once pioneered. Perhaps the most striking shift is psychological. TGI Fridays used to symbolize affordable celebration, a go-to spot for birthdays, first dates, and promotions. Today, analysts say the brand has lost much of its cultural relevance. Its core audience, the American middle class, is shrinking rapidly. Household dining out habits tell the story clearly. Average monthly restaurant visits fell from 5.3 in 2019 to just 2.7 by 2025. TGI Fridays isn't just another chain having a rough year. It mirrors the quiet disappearance of the middle America it was built to serve. And its decline points to something larger, that the idea of affordable joy in dining is slowly slipping away from the American table. Number 9. Hooters. Very few restaurant brands were as instantly recognizable or as openly debated as Hooters. At its peak, it stood as a $1.2 billion staple of American casual dining, built around spicy wings, cold beer, and a very specific brand of nostalgia that kept crowds coming back. But by 2025, the bright orange shorts and glowing signs can no longer disguise the reality. Hooters is in free fall. In June 2025, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, confirming that more than 150 U.S. locations would shut down. Nearly half of its domestic restaurants disappeared in the span of a single year, leaving over 6,000 workers suddenly unemployed. And the trouble runs deeper than balance sheets. This is a crisis shaped by cultural change, generational shifts, and economic pressure all colliding at once. Hooters flourished in a time when eating out felt like entertainment, not a financial gamble. Today, that world no longer exists. Rents are up 25%, grocery costs have climbed 21%, and credit card debt has surged to $1.4 trillion. Faced with those pressures, Americans are slashing discretionary spending first. Restaurant analysts report that sales in the sports bar and casual grill category dropped 17% year over year in the second quarter of 2025. Even longtime fans admit that $16 plates of wings and $9 beer pitchers are no longer defensible purchases. The internal numbers paint an even darker picture. Average sales per Hooters location have fallen below $1 million, down from more than $1.7 million per store in 2016. Delivery platforms have pulled customers away from dining rooms, while extreme staff turnover, now exceeding 90% annually, has made consistent service nearly impossible. Financial strain has also crushed franchise operators. Combined rent obligations and supplier debt are estimated at $180 million, triggering sudden closures across states like Florida, Texas, and Georgia, regions that were once considered the brand's strongest territory. At the same time, Hooters is grappling with an identity problem. Younger diners increasingly prefer gender-neutral, health-focused spaces, not the outdated party bar atmosphere the chain is known for. Rebranding efforts, including smaller Hoots Wings locations, failed to gain real momentum. Public interest tells the same story. Nationwide search data shows that Hooters Near Me dropped by 58% between 2020 and 2025. Beneath those statistics lies an uncomfortable truth. The formula that once represented carefree American leisure no longer fits a society consumed by cost of living anxiety. Hooters isn't just losing customers, it's losing relevance. In a world where escape now happens through screens instead of sports bars, the brand's decline reflects a deeper cultural shift. And in 2025, America isn't searching for entertainment with dinner. It's focused on getting by. Number 8. Taco Bell. For generations, Taco Bell ruled late-night America. It was cheap, fast, and satisfyingly greasy, the kind of food people relied on after midnight when nothing else was open. But the familiar bell that once echoed across more than 7,000 U.S. locations is starting to fade. In 2025, the chain is facing its most difficult year in decades, announcing the closure of more than 400 underperforming restaurants, largely in suburban areas and college towns. The warning signs are everywhere. Same-store sales have fallen roughly 6.2% year over year, marking Taco Bell's steepest U.S. decline since 2011. Even more concerning, foot traffic in major cities like Los Angeles and Chicago has dropped by 14%. Data from Placer.ai shows this isn't driven by a single issue. It's the result of multiple pressures piling up at once. Inflation has pushed menu prices nearly 27% higher since 2019, shattering the psychological cheap meal threshold that once defined the brand. A Crunchwrap Supreme that used to cost $3.49 now sits closer to $6.29. In an economy where 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, that jump makes a real difference. Taco Bell, once the ultimate budget option, is now competing with frozen burritos at the grocery store for cost-conscious customers. The chain's core audience, young adults and overnight workers, has been hit especially hard by rising rents and growing credit card delinquencies. Late-night hours, once Taco Bell's strongest advantage, are no longer delivering. Sales between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. have declined 19% compared to last year. At the same time, delivery orders, an essential lifeline during the pandemic, have fallen by 30% as gas prices push past $4 a gallon in many states. Franchise operators are feeling the squeeze from every angle. Utility bills are climbing, kitchen wages now exceed $17 an hour, and debt levels continue to rise. Corporate data shows operating margins shrinking rapidly, dropping from 22% to just 13% in under 2 years. Even the brand's long-standing strategy of rolling out new menu items every quarter hasn't been enough to offset declining traffic and fading customer loyalty. On a symbolic level, Taco Bell's struggle cuts deep. For millions of lower-income Americans, it represented the last affordable treat meal, a $5 box that didn't feel like a compromise. Today, that same box costs around $8.49, and customers are walking away. TikTok is flooded with viral clips comparing old and new prices, amplifying frustration and backlash. In 2025, the chain that built its empire on late-night comfort is colliding with harsh economic reality. For many Americans, fast food is no longer an option. They simply can't afford it anymore. Number 7. Sweetgreen. Not long ago, Sweetgreen was celebrated as the blueprint for the future of healthy eating. Fresh, ethical, and modern. It promised a better way to dine. But in 2025, that vision is colliding with a hard truth. America can't afford premium salads anymore. The fast casual chain that built its reputation on food with integrity is now bleeding money. Same-store sales have dropped 7.2%, and since January, more than 40 U.S. locations have permanently closed. Investors who once believed Sweetgreen would follow the same growth path as Chipotle are watching its stock sink below $10 a share, a dramatic fall from its $52 IPO price in 2021. For many observers, Sweetgreen's decline represents more than a struggling balance sheet. It highlights just how unstable the modern wellness economy has become. A Sweetgreen bowl that once cost $9.95 now averages $15.29 nationwide, with some locations charging more than $17. Add a drink, and lunch can easily approach $20, at a time when the median American worker's paycheck buys 20% less food than it did in 2020. The math simply doesn't add up. Millennials and Gen Z professionals, once the brand's most loyal customers, are pulling back. Many are switching to cheaper grab-and-go meals or skipping eating out altogether. Delivery orders have dropped 28%, and in-store foot traffic is down nearly 18%, according to second quarter data. Operationally, the pressure is just as intense. Employee turnover has climbed to an alarming 92% annually. Food waste costs, driven by short shelf lives and expensive ingredients, have jumped 30%. Every closed location leaves behind massive losses, with build-out costs often topping $1.2 million per store. Even Sweetgreen's ambitious high-tech, infinite kitchen automation project, designed to reduce labor expenses, has failed to meaningfully slow the financial bleeding. At its core, though, the problem runs deeper than costs. Sweetgreen once symbolized aspiration, the idea that eating local, organic food was a marker of success. In 2025, that image has flipped. Now it represents guilt and exclusion. In a country where 42 million people rely on food assistance, a $17 salad feels less like inspiration and more like a provocation. Analysts increasingly describe Sweetgreen as a warning sign for upscale fast casual brands, proof of how quickly premium concepts crack when the middle class is under strain. The company's collapse isn't really about expensive kale. It's a reflection of America's widening economic divide, and a reminder that the dream of healthy living has become a luxury many can no longer afford. Number 6. Chipotle Mexican Grill. For years, Chipotle was considered nearly untouchable. It was seen as recession-proof, the face of modern fast casual dining, and the brand that transformed burritos into a cultural phenomenon. Yet in 2025, cracks are finally showing in Chipotle's polished stainless steel image. For the first time in more than 10 years, U.S. same-store sales have fallen, dropping 4.5%. Customer traffic tells an even harsher story. Visits in major urban markets are down 12% year over year, while analysts note that the average check, now above $14.80, has risen about 35% faster than inflation. That gap has pushed away the price-sensitive customers who once formed the backbone of the brand. Quietly, Chipotle closed 75 underperforming locations in 2025, most of them in suburban regions already struggling with layoffs and higher living expenses. At the center of the problem is a simple reality. Americans no longer have extra money to spend. Since 2021, incomes have increased only about 3%, while food prices have surged nearly 21%. A burrito bowl that used to cost $8.50 now regularly exceeds $12, and adding guacamole can drive the total close to $16. For a family of 4, that turns into a $64 meal, roughly the same price as a full grocery run. What was once marketed as an affordable, healthier alternative is now being called fast casual luxury by frustrated customers online. Meanwhile, operating costs have ballooned. Minimum wages in major states like California and New York now range from $16 to $18 an hour, and the cost of avocados and proteins has jumped around 40%. As a result, Chipotle's profit margins have narrowed sharply, falling from 22% to just 14% in only 2 years. Even delivery, once seen as a growth engine, has created new problems. Commission fees from third-party apps are consuming as much as 30% of each order's revenue, further squeezing profitability. The company's long-standing marketing focus on ethical sourcing and sustainability increasingly feels disconnected from a country where millions are focused on basic survival. Chipotle's core audience, middle-income professionals, is being hit hard by soaring rents and the return of student loan payments. At the same time, competitors like Qdoba and Moe's are undercutting prices, making Chipotle's premium integrity positioning harder to justify. What's unraveling here isn't just a restaurant chain, it's a symbol. Once held up as the model of a modern, upwardly mobile America, Chipotle has become a warning sign. In 2025, its struggles show how even the biggest success stories can falter when the economic foundation beneath them weakens. For many customers, that once perfect burrito bowl now carries the bitter taste of inflation itself. Number 5. KFC. For generations, Kentucky Fried Chicken represented the heart of Southern comfort food, a familiar red bucket filled with nostalgia and tradition. But in 2025, that image is unraveling fast. Across the United States, KFC has closed more than 400 locations since January, erasing nearly 10% of its domestic presence. Same-store sales in the U.S. are down 5.3% year-over-year, marking the brand's steepest home market decline in more than 15 years. Inside the company, executives privately acknowledge a painful reality. KFC is losing the very customers it was built for. Working-class families who once relied on its value-driven meals are walking away from $30 family buckets they simply can't justify anymore. What's happening goes far beyond fried chicken. It's the breakdown of the economic conditions that once made KFC affordable. Prices tell the story clearly. A combo meal that cost $7.99 in 2019 now averages around $13.49, while a 12-piece family bucket has climbed past $32 in many states. That's nearly a 68% price increase in just 6 years. At the same time, wages have failed to keep pace, and the typical American household now spends 11.3% of its disposable income on food, the highest share since 1989. When there's nothing left after rent and gas, fried chicken stops being dinner and starts feeling like a luxury. The pressure on the business side has been just as severe. Cooking oil prices have surged 43%, poultry costs are up 31%, and utility bills for franchisees have risen 22% year-over-year. Labor shortages have pushed hourly wages above $16 in 22 states, wiping out what little margin remained. As a result, more than 60 franchise owners nationwide are now renegotiating debt just to stay afloat. KFC is also facing a serious identity problem. Once known as the go-to option for affordable family meals, it's now trapped between ultra-cheap fast food competitors and trend-driven chicken sandwich brands that appeal more to Gen Z. Efforts to modernize, like Beyond Fried Chicken and self-service kiosks, failed to win back consumers already stretched thin by rising costs. At its core, KFC's decline is deeply symbolic. It's the story of a working-class brand that has priced itself out of the lives of the people who made it successful. Families who once gathered around a bucket for Sunday dinner now drive past without stopping, aware that the Colonel's comfort food has become yet another victim of inflation. Number 4. Pizza Hut. What was once America's go-to pizza chain is now unraveling in slow motion. Pizza Hut, the undisputed king of takeout during the 1990s, is buckling under relentless economic strain. In 2025 alone, more than 500 U.S. locations have shut down, cutting the national store count to fewer than 5,200, the lowest level in 4 decades. Same-store sales have dropped 6.8%, and franchise bankruptcy filings have tripled compared to 2023. The financial fallout has been severe. Pizza Hut's U.S. business, which once generated roughly $5 billion a year, is now barely holding above $3.2 billion in gross revenue. For years, the brand was woven into American family life. Red roofs, Friday nights, and pizza that felt like an affordable treat. That image no longer matches reality. The average large pizza now costs about $17.49, up from $11 just 5 years ago. Once delivery fees, tips, and taxes are added, a single order can easily exceed $30. A tough sell for families already overwhelmed by record rents and national credit card debt surpassing $1.3 trillion. Inflation has erased the idea of value dining, and Pizza Hut's core audience, suburban middle America, has been hit hard by higher mortgage rates and growing job insecurity. As household budgets tighten, pizza night has quietly slipped off the calendar. Behind the scenes, franchise operators are hemorrhaging cash. Delivery app commissions can swallow as much as 28% of each order. Cheese prices have jumped 40%, and maintaining aging dine-in restaurants costs millions every year. Many of those iconic red roof buildings now sit vacant, frozen in time from an era when families regularly gathered around shared tables. The shift to digital came too late. Domino's dominates tech-driven delivery, while smaller chains lure customers away with lower prices. Internal company plans show just how serious the situation has become, with nearly 1,000 dine-in locations slated for conversion into carry-out only or ghost kitchens by 2026. A clear move born out of necessity, not strategy. Pizza Hut's decline isn't just a business story. It marks the loss of a cultural touchstone. A brand that once stood for comfort, laughter, and affordability now reflects an economy where even a simple pizza dinner feels like a stretch. As Americans trade nostalgia for survival, the red roof that once glowed with family warmth now flickers over a country struggling to afford the basics of dinner. Number 3. Burger King. Have it your way has quietly transformed into have it if you can afford it. In 2025, Burger King's collapse has shaken the fast food world. The chain has announced the closure of more than 700 U.S. locations, wiping out nearly 10,000 jobs nationwide. Sales are down 8.4%, and franchise bankruptcies are spreading rapidly. Once the clear number 2 behind McDonald's, Burger King now risks falling entirely out of the top 5. The financial story is stark. Average menu prices have jumped 32% since 2020, while foot traffic has dropped almost 18% year over year. A Whopper combo that cost $7.99 4 years ago now averages $12.59. For millions of Americans, that difference can mean the choice between dinner and skipping a meal. Even the heavily promoted $5 duo meal failed to lure customers back, as consumers quickly realized that value meals no longer delivered true value. Debt levels are mounting. Corporate obligations now exceed $11 billion, and franchise operators report razor-thin profits, with average store margins dipping below 5%, roughly half the break-even point. Utility bills are up 24%, wages have risen 19%, and food costs, including beef, have surged nearly 30% year over year. Even major modernization efforts have backfired. The $400 million Reclaim the Flame remodeling initiative, designed to update aging stores, has left smaller franchises buried in debt without reversing the decline in traffic. Beyond the numbers, the damage is cultural. Burger King's brand loyalty has eroded. Social media sentiment shows a 45% drop in positive mentions since 2022, and surveys reveal growing frustration over quality and pricing. Many locations in struggling cities like Detroit, St. Louis, and Cleveland have been abandoned entirely. In the 1980s, Burger King symbolized youthful rebellion, a bold, fast alternative to McDonald's. In 2025, it stands for corporate fatigue and a broken promise of affordable dining. Shuttered drive-thrus along once busy highways don't just mark the decline of a single brand. They tell the story of a nation where fast food, once the final bastion of affordability, has itself fallen victim to economic collapse. Number 2. Wendy's. For decades, Wendy's was the symbol of honesty in fast food. Fresh beef, square patties, and meals that delivered real value. But by 2025, even the smiling red-haired mascot can't mask the storm brewing inside the chain. Wendy's is faltering under the same economic pressures weighing down the American middle class. Over 450 U.S. locations have already closed this year, and same-store sales have dropped 6.9%, the steepest decline in company history. Corporate filings show franchise bankruptcies rising by 38%, with several major regional operators teetering on the edge of liquidation. The financial picture is stark. The average Wendy's meal, once affordable, now costs $12.75, up from $8.29 in 2019, a 54% jump. Inflation has eroded the chain's appeal to its loyal blue-collar customers. Even the iconic 4 for $4 deal, long seen as a lifeline for working families, quietly vanished in 2024, replaced by the Biggie Bag, priced at $6.99 or more. What was once value is now a reminder that in today's America, fast food itself has become a luxury. Franchise owners are raising urgent alarms. Labor costs have climbed 21%, beef prices are up 35%, and electricity bills for small stores have surged nearly 30% since 2022. With profit margins squeezed to single digits, more than 60 franchisees have paused any new investment. Analysts warn that Wendy's U.S. system debt could exceed $9 billion by the end of 2025. Culturally, the brand is losing relevance. Younger consumers, once drawn to Wendy's witty social media presence, are gravitating toward cheaper street food and delivery apps. Longtime customers now complain that menu prices rise faster than wages. Fast food used to be an escape from struggle, one analyst noted. Now, it's a reminder of it. Even leadership struggles to find direction. The company's push toward digital drive-thrus and AI-powered menu pricing backfired, sparking outrage when customers discovered that prices fluctuated based on the time of day or neighborhood, a literal algorithm for inequality. Wendy's decline isn't merely a corporate problem. It reflects the fragility of America's consumer economy, where loyalty disappears once wallets run dry. The chain that once promised quality as our recipe has become a cautionary tale, proving that no amount of freshness can survive when an entire nation's appetite is shrinking. Number 1. McDonald's. The Golden Arches, once a beacon of American optimism, now cast a long shadow of decline. In 2025, McDonald's, the world's largest fast food empire, is stumbling even in its own backyard. U.S. same-store sales fell 6% in the first quarter and another 2.9% in the second, marking the company's worst domestic performance since the 2008 recession. Over 800 locations are expected to close by year's end, particularly in low-income and rural areas where sales have plummeted as much as 15%. The issue goes far beyond rising prices. It's a reflection of the shrinking purchasing power of an entire nation. A Big Mac meal, once the epitome of cheap convenience, now averages $13.59 nationwide, up from $6.39 in 2019, a staggering 113% increase in just 6 years. The dollar menu, once McDonald's signature promise of affordability, has all but disappeared. Today, few items cost less than $3. Customers are feeling the pinch. Foot traffic has fallen 14%, and the chain's reputation for value is in tatters. For decades, McDonald's thrived as everyman's meal. In 2025, the everyman can no longer afford it. Middle-income families are skipping fast food entirely, while younger generations dismiss the brand as overpriced and low quality. Franchisees are struggling under mounting expenses. Ground beef prices are up 32%, packaging costs have risen 27%, and average crew wages exceed $17 an hour in key states. Profit margins have been cut nearly in half, from 18% to just 10%. Inside the company, executives are scrambling. A heavily promoted value meal relaunch failed to bring customers back, and new automation and digital drive-thru systems intended to reduce labor costs have alienated diners, causing service issues and technical glitches. Even loyal fans are venting online, with hashtags like #McBroken trending nationwide after self-order kiosks failed. But the story goes deeper than economics. It's emotional. McDonald's was never just a restaurant. It was a cultural touchstone, woven into the American childhood experience. Birthday parties, road trips, school lunches, all connected to the glow of the Golden Arches. Today, that glow feels empty. The decline of McDonald's is more than a single brand struggle. It's a reflection of a faltering middle class. When even McDonald's becomes unaffordable, it signals a fundamental fracture in America's promise. The empire that once fed the world is now feeding on its own decline.